Hi, team. Welcome to the show. Today, I want to talk about this idea of failure. Failure is definitely one of the scariest things in the world for people, and there are so many reasons for that. But in this episode, we won't really get into the reasons why failure is so scary, but rather today, I want to talk about things that feel like failure, but are actually signs of growth and progress. Failure is something we talk a lot about on this show. And I think it's important that we talk about it because people get stuck in false expectations and standards for themselves, many of which were ingrained in them by society and culture or religion or education or a multitude of lived experiences, but are often more like chains around us. Things that keep us trapped, ideas that don't actually make sense for us as a person or serve us in any way. So I want to dig into this idea a little bit and create some distinctions here around failure versus actual growth and learning. So what are things that feel like failure, but are actually signs of growth and progress? Well, the first one that I want to talk about is feeling overwhelmed by new challenges. And I'm not sure when this started. I don't know when this rhetoric took place or why this has become such a thing. But here's what I want to say. It is absolutely normal to feel overwhelmed by new challenges. I mean, come on. We as humans, we have an ancestral part of our brain that is wired for survival. And part of survival is being leery of new conditions or unknown territory. Why? Because there could be imminent danger around any corner or any bend. I mean, this is our instinctual brain knowing that we have to proceed with caution. So it's absolutely understandable that we would have feelings of anxiety or uncertainty, apprehension, or overwhelm when we are in new or uncharted territory. It's just par for the course. And I don't know when this became a sign of failure in our minds. I know that I felt this in my mind, but I don't know when it began. But I don't know many people who don't experience some degree of these feelings when they're starting something new. I mean, we really need to integrate this and tattoo it on our brains, the idea that it's very normal and expected to have some feelings of apprehension and overwhelm in the face of a new challenge. So if this is something that you're going through in your life, expect it. Know that it is coming and take it as a very normal part of the process. The second thing that feels like failure, but is actually a sign of growth, is making mistakes. It's making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. And we've talked about this a lot in previous episodes, but one of the major pathways to growth and expansion is making mistakes and failing and falling down. If we don't do that, we don't have a quick pathway to growth. Now, let's be honest, if you're continuing to make mistakes and not learning anything from them, that's a totally different situation and one that's probably not very helpful for you. But most times in life, when you fail, you learn a pretty big lesson. I bet you can think of dozens of examples in your life where you've had a misstep or a perceived failure, where you really made a big mistake. And as a result of that, you had tremendous expansion and growth. I mean, some of the most painful times in my life, times of struggle where I knew that I was failing or where I felt like I was making big mistakes, when I look back in hindsight, I can see that it resulted in a huge leap forward in terms of emotional and intellectual growth. And I wouldn't change those things. Despite the fact that they were really painful, I wouldn't change it because I wouldn't be where I am today. We have to shift the way that we perceive mistakes and shift this perspective so that we can see the mistakes and the failures as part of the human experience. It's just a part of it. And it's part of our process to growth and learning. Another thing that feels like failure, but is actually growth, is admitting that you don't know something. And we have become so saturated in this culture and society, and it feels like it's a crime to be perceived as wrong. Everybody wants to be right. I mean, you see this on social media, you see it in news. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching toddlers arguing on the screen because everybody insists that they're right. But the truth is, there is tremendous growth that happens when you admit that you don't know the answer, because then you have the opportunity to have a curious and open mind. I mean, it's very unlikely that you as a human will know the answer to everything and that you're going to be right about everything. You don't have to be an expert on every topic. You have to be able to admit when you don't know something and allow yourself to maybe learn from somebody else. You might just grow from it. Another topic that people ask me about all the time is this idea of outgrowing relationships. And this can be a hard one. It can be very painful, and it can very much feel like failure when you are outgrowing a relationship, especially because there's a lot of emotions tied in here, and it can feel sad to let go of a relationship that was once really fun and fulfilling and beautiful. The reality is simply that people are on a constant path of evolution, and it's not always going to be that those paths align for the entirety of your life. I know you know this intuitively and logically that some relationships are just here for a season. Sometimes that season can be months, sometimes it's years, sometimes it's decades. And there are always a few relationships that are there for a lifetime. But I think it would be really helpful to normalize this outgrowing of relationships. It would be really helpful to have more grace for yourself and, frankly, a lot more grace for the other person, and know that you are both on your own paths. And that, let's be honest, the multitude of paths of all the people in your life won't always align with yours. I mean, think of all the connections and relationships that you've had. We can release the shame or the guilt or the resentment that might come up as a result of that outgrowing, and instead try to honor and appreciate that those paths even crossed each other in the first place. Isn't that beautiful? Like, there is a little bit of a beauty and a sense of being a miracle in the first place. I just feel like there's always something to learn from every single relationship, even the ones that you've outgrown. A few more things that can feel like failure, but are actually growth. Asking for help when you need it. This one is huge. We grow up in a society in the US where we're encouraged to be defiantly independent and self-sufficient. But here's the truth. We don't get anywhere without the help of other people. We are all intertwined. We are all connected in this universe. And it would be incredibly presumptuous of us to think that we've gotten to where we are solely by our individual efforts. That's not true. It's just not real. So let it go. Let it go. Let it go that you can't ask for help. Be open to reaching out to people. I always challenge my clients to think about how it feels when somebody asks them for help. And they always say this: it feels great. It feels awesome for me to be able to show up and be of service to that person. So if you feel purposeful and useful as a result of somebody asking you for help, why would you deny that to the people who love you in your life? Allow them to show up for you and be of service to you. It's one of the greatest ways to build deeper connections, and it just really strengthens the fabric of our relationships. Another big one is feeling like you are starting over in life. Most people are going to have a time in their life where they feel like they're starting over. And that can absolutely feel like failure. But team, this is actually a sign of huge growth. Give yourself permission to shift and change. I know that when you're looking out into the world through the lens of social media, it can feel like you are falling behind. But please release that idea. Release the idea that you're meant to have a linear path in your life, and allow yourself the freedom to change. Take the guardrails off your brain, be able to dream a little bit, and know that your path is your own. You can start over as many times as you want. All you have to do is be true to yourself, be as authentic and in integrity as you can, and you cannot fail. And then finally, feeling lost in your life or uncertain about your path or struggling to find balance in your life, all of these things can feel like you're failing. But in reality, you truly are moving in the direction of growth. I know that we all love to have a really clear path forward. We love to be able to see 10 miles ahead. But there are just going to be times in life where you can only see like 3 feet in front of you, and you just have to keep going. There's no other choice. Life will continue to happen. Change is the constant. So if you're stuck in the fog right now and you can only see that 3 feet ahead, remember that you're still growing. You're still making progress. There's no shame in feeling uncertainty. I know it's really uncomfortable to be in that place. I've been there. It's tremendously uncomfortable, but it's not a shameful place to be. It doesn't insinuate that you are failing, especially if you are taking ownership of your life and leading with intention. It doesn't matter how far ahead you can see, as long as you are continuing to move forward. Now, when I think about this whole list of things, I resonate with every single one of them. I felt every single one of these circumstances at some point in my life. They've all happened to me. And every time they do, I still hear that little voice in my head saying, oh, you're falling behind, or oh, here you go, you're failing. I still have that, despite the fact that I know these things pretty well. It can be really challenging to resist getting caught up in comparison when we have access to so much information about what people are doing in their lives. I totally understand that. But that's why I offer these reminders today, so that you can recalibrate and remember that nobody can walk your path except for you. Nobody knows what's best for you in your life except for you. Your path is your own, and it's an honor to be on it. So let's change the narrative this week and remember that all these things that feel like failure are actually signs of incredible growth and progress. We should actually be celebrating each other and congratulating each other for doing all this work. So go out there this week and just keep growing. Go easy on yourself. Thank you for listening. And as always, thank you for being ready to impact. Thanks for listening to Impact Ready. I hope today's episode inspired you to own your impact and recognize that you are powerful. By elevating our energy and awareness, we can create exponential change in this life. If you enjoyed today's insights, share them with a friend and subscribe to the show for more. I truly appreciate you. Thanks again for being here.